Pastor Chris Ong. Please give him a warm welcome. This information has been taken from his Twitter account.
All right, I need to pay this guy more. All right, fantastic. Aloha, and so good to have everybody here. Let me just open with a word of prayer, shall we? Father, we thank you that we are able to celebrate together with you, that you are every part of our lives. You're in every part of our lives. And I pray, Lord, today as we talk about family warmth, that we would get a glimpse of the warmth that you have in your family, that you would help us see that you are a trustworthy, faithful God, that we can be warmly loved by you, not just in mind and in concept, but that we could feel it. I pray, Lord, that that would be also present in our homes as we live out households of faith, that we would be homes where the very warmth of God is present. So we commit today into your hands. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hey, welcome to a very, very different Sunday. It's actually going to be different every single week for the next 2 months. The Generation series is so important for us as a church because having grown up at church and sort of being in ministry now for 18 years, I've discovered that if we only ever talk about teaching things and very, very specific theologies, a lot of families find it hard to translate that experience back into their home life. And then what we end up getting is families actually that know a lot of things about what to do and what not to do in the kingdom of God, but the tangible experience, growing up in a home, a Christian godly home, can sometimes feel cold. And I felt as a kids pastor when I first started here, youth pastor, then young adults pastor, now senior pastor, I felt that as a church, we have to take responsibility for that. That means we've got to spend some time helping families as they cultivate households of faith to talk about some very practical things that are going to bridge the gap to real, normal, everyday Christian life. A couple of quick announcements that were missed out, just because so many things are updating. Pastor Roland's class is now full. If you didn't get on earlier, too late. Maybe the next one. Also, there's the missions piggy bank, the world globe. Can we do another final appeal for that? Because we've only collected $500. I know everybody's 10-cent coins and 20-cent coins have added up to 500, but we really wanted to see if we could have a little bit more so that we can move that thermometer. And I understand there's a lot of things going on, but the missions box is still out there if you want to donate for that. Okay, we are in the second, let me see if I can get to my slides. We are in the second week of the Generation series. It's cross-generation. If you're wondering why we're all Hawaii today, it's because we're trying to do this metaphor through the whole series that crossing from one generation to the other, so let's say if we're adults and we're trying to speak with kids, is like going to another country. You only know very superficial things about it, right? But you don't really know it that well. Today, we're actually doing young families cross adults. Those are the two generations that we're doing. And so we've actually tried to make this service as kid-friendly as possible. But for this section, for the next 25 minutes, because we're going to have a Q&A a bit later, 25 minutes, I'm going to be talking to parents. There's activity sheets out there. You can also try to pay attention to my message. But I've got a strategy because it's very hard to talk to parents about parenting when the kids are around, because the kids will then, they take notes and like, oh, why is my mom and dad not doing this? Right? So my strategy is to talk very fast and use complicated language. And then you can ask me questions later. Okay, so I grew up seeing this divide that takes place between generations, and so I actually think that this cross-generation series, which I'm so thrilled we do every year, a generation series, will help us to bridge that gap. But we need to understand that unity and crossing generations is not the same as uniformity. That means the goal is not to have every generation the same, right? I'm like the middle ground generation, right? So I'm 47, right? So I'm like mid of the ground. The idea is not to make every generation my generation, right? The idea is that in all of our differences, we're still united in Christ. A good analogy that the Bible uses is the body, that we're all different parts of the body. Each part of your body is different, it has a different function, but oh my goodness, your body is definitely united. You're one body. You're all, anything that happens to your hand, trust me, you're going to feel it. Anything that happens to your foot, you're going to feel it. And we're a bit like that. So each week is going to be a little bit different. So let me quickly place everybody on what generation I'm in. I'm a parent with 2 adult kids and 1 teenager, right? So we're the standard older adult, and we're talking to, I don't know, like Quentin and Sonia's family, right, with young kids. And just so that everybody knows how daggy our generation is, I'm going to tell one joke, and then you'll know what generation I'm in. Here we go. Because the youth camp just finished. I heard it was really, really good. Why, and I've got a teenage daughter, she's sleeping at home, recovering from the camp, she's at 4 p.m. service. Why do teenage girls always go around in odd numbers? Have you noticed that? They always walk around in odd numbers. You know why? Because they can't even. Can't even. Okay, see, so that places me in this generation. Okay, that's right. We're the 40s and the 50s, speaking to the maybe 20s and the 30s, right? And only the 40s and 50s above laughed at my joke. Today, we're going to try and cover quite a lot of stuff, and it was a bit of a challenge because how are you going to do family warmth, which is the aim for today? So we tried to make it as experiential as possible so you can taste how family warmth is meant to feel like. But in terms of talking about it, it's going to be hard. So Man and I, we might be running a more detailed Christian education class later on in the year that will answer some specific questions. But the goal for today is to really highlight a couple of big markers to point us in the right direction. In 15, 20 minutes, you're never going to solve all of family issues and family warmth, right? I wish we could. Here we go. What would a godly, mature, kingdom-minded adult family, so family like mine, say to a similar godly family with young kids? We're 10 years, 15, 20 years ahead. What would we say to them? And I've asked around, and based on my experience as well, we would say this. In the end, relationship is what keeps you going. That the phases and the rules and the seasons of your childhood and parenting, they come and they pass. You're going to change bedtimes and rules and device rules and things 100 times. But by the time you get to our phase of life, you're going to really hope that you have developed relationships. By the time my daughter's 21, 18, 19, older, that regardless of what stage you're in, your goal will ultimately be parenting towards adulthood, right? Nobody wants a 47-year-old kid living in your home. You're doing the laundry for them, right? So the goal is to actually head towards adult relationships that are Christ kingdom-centered. You know, I had a conversation with Rachel that kind of cemented this whole thing. And I'm going to say it in terms of the conversation I had with my family, but it's also my experience in 18 years as a pastor and as a kids and a youth pastor. Rachel said, we were chit-chatting one day, and Rachel said, hey, Mom, Dad, I've discovered there's something a little bit weird and different about our family. When I talk to my friends, they tell me that they can't talk to their parents. Some of them, it's not so much that they can't talk, they don't even want to talk to their parents and tell them the issues and the problems that they've got going on. And so, Maine and I, we delved a little bit deeper into that because, we're pastoring a church and we're talking about family at church quite often. And so I wanted to see what was it where some adult children feel like they can share all their life's problems and dialogue issues with their parents, and others just felt that they couldn't. And she came up with these two things. One was that some of her friends and their peers, and Nikki jumped in as well, said that one of the main reasons why they don't talk to their parents is that they're afraid of the reaction they may get. Even though they're grown-up people. They're 18, they're 19, they're 20, 21, and they're still worried about their parents' reaction, so they don't tell their parents things, and now they're adults, so they don't need to. That was the first, parents' reaction. Second was, it's not the way we do things in our home. We're a functional family. That means as long as I do my job, I do the chores, as long as I get my stuff done. Mom doesn't really even talk to dad. The kids don't even really talk to each other. We just go into our rooms, and it just would be weird and awkward to share about my life and talk at home. That was the second reason they gave me. It turns out that it's possible that you could have a home that is cold, that is not warm. And here is the big insight from this. And I know that it might throw quite a few of you. But when we have to compare between whether the parents say it's a warm home or whether the kids say it's a warm home, actually research has shown, and I've definitely seen this before, that sure, both are important, but it is more important, relatively more important, that the kids say it's a warm home. This might be a bit shocking to you, but it's like me being the senior pastor of the church. If I say this is a relational church, if I go around I say, hey, this is a relational church, of course I would say it's a relationship. I'm the senior pastor. Our strategy is relationship, right? It's different if everybody on the ground, if everybody who comes to the church, they say it's a relational church. Then you're closer to the truth. So many times we've chatted with families, and when I talk to the parents, they say it's a warm home, and their kids can talk to them anytime. The question you have to ask, if we're really trying to be honest, if we're trying to make a real difference in our homes, is what would your children, I'm not saying that they're the boss. Please don't hear me say, that they determine everything, because they have their own perspective, and sometimes it's wrong. And truth wins out at the end. But if you have to choose between the parents' view and the kids' view, over time, the kids' view becomes quite important, especially when they become adults, and then it's cemented and they think, this is what my family was like when I was growing up. Today, there are two elements that are backing up all that we're going to be talking today. One is rigorous research, right? I'm going to point to a very famous study done in 2011 that looked at how faith transmitted from one generation to another. The first thing that Vern Bengston said in this study was that family warmth, he had a TH in there, was more correlated with faith transmission than any other factor. That means when you are looking at how do you pass your faith from one generation to another, how warm your family is more important than how pious your family is. Because when he researched over 300 families over 30 years, cross multi-generations, he discovered many, many religious families that would force their kids or have as rules very biblical things. But children growing up in those homes would feel like, I don't want to be like this when I grow up. I want nothing to do with this. And so they couldn't feel it, and they left the faith. The second thing, which I alluded to earlier, is for faith transmission, child's perspective of closeness matters more than parents' perception. Not that parents' perception is not important, but between the two, the kid's perception over time wins out. Aside from research, though, everything that we're going to be talking about today actually falls within God's kingdom and His plan for family. All right? And I'm sure you know this, so I'm going to go pretty quickly through it. But 1 John 3, 1-2, is a good example of that. He goes, see what kind of love the Father has given to us. So what kind of love, what kind of relational environment is from the Father? That we should be called children, see family language, children of God. And so we are. This is the reason why the world does not know us, is because it did not know Him. Behold, we are God's children. So now if you're talking about God's family and His plan for family, beloved, so one, you're loved. We are God's children now, and what we will be has not yet appeared, but we know that when He appears, we shall be like Him because we shall see Him as He is. So we are supposed to, in our homes, be a reflector of God and His family and His love. That's why we sang, Good, Good Father. Christianity doesn't work without relationship. Right? If you think of the prodigal son, which should be actually the parable of the good father, this guy, he so loves his disobedient, terrible son that he's waiting for him to come back. And when the son comes back, he has to lift up his robe, which they don't do in those days, and run out to him in an undignified way. That's how much he loves. That is the degree of warmth and care in their home. So it gets a little bit further in 1 John 3:18, and it says this, little children, John talking to all of us as if we were little children. Let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. That's what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about, actually, hey, let's not just do lots of words and talk, chit-chat about what you know of the Bible. In deed, that means in what you're doing at home, and in truth, that means in reality. Is there love in your home? Does it feel warm? Is it present? Okay, so you can jump on to www.sli.do or slido.com, either way, or you can use this QR code. I'm going to try to finish as quickly. I'm really going to go pretty fast. We might only have time for one question or two, but if we collate a list of questions today, because I know I'm going to be covering things at a high level, it'll inform our Christian education things for going forward, because this is a very important topic. So you can jump on that. Of all the things, and if you've got teenagers here and you want to ask questions, you're also welcome to jump on. Of all the things that we could talk about today, I wanted to hone in on just one. It's not everything, but if we had to pick one, I wanted to pick the word trust. Trust, it's like if, when you're a mountain climber, I don't know if you know this, but the inside rope of a mountain rope is the strongest. It's actually the one that carries the entire weight. And the outside part of the mountaineer rope is just for looks and to protect the inner part, which is the strong part. So when we think of families, the inner environment of your family is the one that is actually the very important thing. The outside parts, how Asian culture, the face, the appearance, what car you drive, what the uncle, aunties think about you, all the outside stuff, they're not as crucial as what goes on deep inside in the heart of your family. And trust is at the core of that. Yep. Trust is the same word, actually, as faith in the Bible, pisteo. Right? So we're supposed to, if you think of God's family is centered around trust. In fact, we cannot please God without faith. So God's family, we have to trust God. We have to place our faith in God. If we are supposed to have Christian homes, at some level, there must be a home where trust is present. And I get it. We must point our kids, not to trust us as parents, but we must point them to trust God, right? Raising kids to trust God is actually the goal because we want to raise up Christian kids. But, here's the big but. The means is also important. So how do we get our kids to trust God? This is what I want to talk about today. Right? Because the mistake that we see so often is we go, yeah, we all agree and go, you always trust God, and now I will force you to trust God, and I won't even bother building any trust in the interim within our family. Ours is not going to be an open, trusting family, but oh my goodness, you better trust God, because we aim for that as the goal. And so for many of us, the means justifies the ends. So even if it's not a loving home that tastes and feels like God's home, it's fine, because the goal was to always get them to be godly, kingdom-minded. The goal was to get them in, a top university, whatever the thing is. The goal was there, and so whatever means would get us there. I want to do a radical suggestion today that if you are a godly, genuine faith family, a good temporary goal. So if you yourself, if you and your wife, you're godly, you love God, right? And I'm talking to the young family parents here. A good temporary goal, an interim goal to make sure that your means matches the ends is family warmth. Because if your children can taste and experience the love of God in a warm, loving family, you will be able to disciple them beyond adulthood. You will be able to continually speak into their life and talk to any of the older parents that are around. Who thinks the parent's job is over at 18? It just changes. And relationship and family warmth is a good interim. It's not the ultimate goal. I want to get this correct. But it's a good interim. So I'm going to give you a model or a checklist that I use to make sure that trust is present in my house. All right? I like lists. I'm going to go pretty fast through it because I miss out things. Okay, so here we go. So I'm thinking, this is literally what man and I do. Not so much man, more so me. Are we building trust in our house? So I asked the first one, so the 5 dimensions of trust are this. And these are the 5 dimensions of trust for any situation at all, right? And 1, people will trust you. So you think, oh, do I trust Cedric, right? One of the things I ask is he going to be good? If I trust you, are you just going to sabotage me and take all my money or whatever it is, right? Are you going to be good towards me? In your home, your kids need to feel your benevolence. That means if I were to test the temperature in the home, they've got to go, oh, you know what? Are my parents good? Are my parents good? And kids are pretty smart, right? I'll talk to parents and they'll be like, Asian parents, of course, I'm doing what's good for them. I'm good for them, But they don't feel that their parents are good. Something is missing in that communication then. You got to work harder. You can't just leave it at that. It's not good enough to say, I know internally I'm good. Nobody else feels that in my home, but I am good. No. They have to feel benevolence to give you trust. Next, reliability. Are you dependable and consistent, right? So I wouldn't trust somebody if they're inconsistent all the time. Like one day you say you come, the next day you don't come, right? So these are standard markers of trust building. They're things that I go through in my head. You may not know this as well, but competence is actually another factor for trust building. That means not just are you good at what you do. So I wouldn't trust my car to a mechanic if he was a terrible mechanic. And so I want to encourage you as a parent, one of the ways you can build family warmth and have a more open house, actually, is to get better at parenting. That means you're reading, you're growing, you're talking to other families, and you're improving so that your kids go, you know what? My parents are actually, I trust them, they're good at parenting, they're good at living the Christian life, they are competent in this, they're not completely useless. Let me just go quickly through them. 4, honesty is an important element for trust, right? We wouldn't trust somebody if we know they're not honest. So are you truthful? And as your kids, and I understand, when you've got kids that are 5 years old, 7 years old, maybe you can't tell them exactly everything, though, right? But as your kids get older, they want you to be honest. I still see parents putting on a facade about the real state of their spiritual life and their home and putting a facade up to their children and their 20 years old children. Kids, when they grow up, they see past it and it erodes trust. 5, openness. Are you hiding things? If you don't know what you don't know, if you hide things, people trust you less. That's why here at FGA, we try to be as open and transparent as possible. Like, whatever you see up on stage should be what you see off stage. These 5 elements, they're actually why we also trust God. We know God to be a good God. We know Him to be reliable. We know Him to be competent in doing what He does. We trust that He's going to win in the end. We trust that He's honest with us, and we know He is open with us, that He has revealed Himself to us. He's even open. If you look through the Bible, it's actually more honest and open than most other religions, because all kinds of terrible things are just discussed about and shared in there. So God is this for us, and we have to, I guess, see how we can build this. And so even if you are not a young family here, I'm hoping that you can sort of head off and take something with you. So I want to end with some sort of practical nuances on this, and then I'm going to invite Sonia up pretty soon. Yep. We're going to aim for 11:45 because food comes out at 12. Okay, so here are some practical considerations as you're trying to build trust. 1, building family warmth is for everyone, even the kids. So you could feel like in your home, it's mom and dad's job to make this a warm home. And you know what? My home is not warm. You know why? Because my mother is not warm. My mother! Let me tell you, you are a child of God. You're part of the kingdom of God. And you can make a difference in the climate of your family home. I've seen it as a kids pastor and as a youth pastor, where parents, it's like a cold place, but when the kid opens up, when the kid says, hey, Mom, Dad, can I share something with you? Can I tell you something? And when they open up their lives, when they offer up trust and warmth, it changes the home. So everybody can have a part to play, not just the dad, not just the mom, all the kids, each one of you, because it's going to be so hard to build family warmth in a home. So I want to encourage you, whatever age you are, you can start now. They say, when is the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. That's how early you have to start to get family warmth. The second best time to plant a tree? Now. Okay, 2. It's easier to tear down than to build. All right, so what you need to know about trust, and I'm sure you know this already, it's very hard to build trust, which is why it takes all of us working together, and very easy to tear down. That's why when we meet in counseling, I meet so many parents who will give me a long list of things that they do to actually benefit the kids, help the home. I've done this, I'm open, I've done all these things. And what they leave out of the equation is the one or two things that they do that destroy trust. Maybe it's the sin that they've hidden. Maybe it's their temper that they cannot control. Maybe it is whatever it is that they get so irritated by the small things and like the kids moving around, you're so perfectionistic or whatever the thing is, and it destroys the whole environment. A few things. Because we all know this. It is easier. Like if you have a big Lego tower, anybody can kick it and knock the whole thing down. It is harder to build it up. And so one of the ways because it's so hard to build, in our home, I go through this list. I'm like, okay, right, do my kids know that I mean good for them, right? Have I been reliable? Because you're slowly trying to build these kinds of things up, all right? I mean, let's be very honest, okay? Nobody is fully trustworthy, so you're always going to fall short. But if you can be honest, right? It's up there. If you can be open, if you can even tell your kids as they get older that you are seeking to get better and that you are wanting good for the family, actually you can start turning that tide in your home. We're not talking today about like a 5-second pill that you swallow and then your family's magically amazing. We're talking about the hard yards of discipling and building a warm family in your house. It can make a difference over time. 3, family warmth doesn't mean no discipline. And that's an entire category on its own, okay? Like heaps of things that we can talk about for discipline while building family warmth. But I want to make it very clear that I'm not talking about just party family, all right? I'll just say one thing about it, because time prevents me from going into detail. Think about it this way. You are more effective with discipleship when there is already an atmosphere of trust. That means if there is a loving environment of family warmth at home already, you actually can disciple your children better. You can discipline them and correct them easier, better, more powerfully than if there's a hostile environment at home already. So whatever you want to talk about, discipline and warmth or whatever, it's still profitable to have a warm home, which means you're doing a lot of trust-building things. And then lastly, I wanted to sort of land on a common confusion that's out there with family warmth. Most people think, oh yeah, I'm really warm. On Friday night, we have pizza, and then we all sit and we watch a movie together. Okay, great. But you force them to do their Kumon homework, and you have to do this, and you scold them for leaving their thing, and then, right, and they can never talk to you because you overreact with stuff. Like, family warmth is more than just leisure. We know this, right? That family warmth requires that you're actually sharing and experiencing life. You're getting to know your kids. And I want to just say, like, it includes having fun, which is what we tried to do today. It is important, even in a church like this, to have Sundays like this where we party a little bit together. A merry heart does good like medicine, says Proverbs. That means in your home, if you want to have a warm family, sure, it's not just leisure, it's intentional, fun, warm connecting together. You want to build time in your house where you're off the job. You're not always in parenting mode. I'm always parenting. Oh, there's a lesson I'm going to need to teach them. Oh, you know what, there's another way. I meet so many parents, they're always in parent mode, and they don't really enjoy their children. Can I encourage you, every now and then, not all the time, every now and then, tap in and really enjoy your children. You can build warmth. And so the last thing is that it's so tricky. I want to encourage you to, hey, as a household of faith, as a church, why don't we help each other? That's why we're doing this cross-generational series. I'm so thankful for our committee that organized this cross-generational team, which had, Cedric and Christina, through myself, with Sonia, Randy Siani, and many others, right? working together to craft the photo booth, the outside slushy. Eunice did the deco thing, like so many things. We can do a lot if you connect outside of your own family bubble. I like what Thessalonians says. Therefore, comfort each other and edify one another, just as you also are doing. I think FJ already does it, which is why I grew up in this church, why I love this church. This church has formed, under Pastor Roland, this church has formed how I've raised my own family and my own kids. So I'm kind of like, I've tasted and tested it. This is why I really like it. Can I encourage you that over this season that we cross a generation and encourage and comfort one another to build trust and family warmth in homes. Okay, I'm going to invite Sonia up. She's going to ask maybe one question. And then, yeah.
So we had a few questions.
Okay, I imagine.
But
in my head, there was like so much more time, but it's okay.
That's okay. But I think the one that stood up most was that Chris, when you said that, it's very important to build trust in a family, someone asked that if, a family unit so big and there's so much flaws and we are different in personality and character and even like just our sinful nature, how then we build trust?
Okay. That's really good. That's one of the things that I think is the advantage of a Christian home. The advantage of a Christian home is that we can actually be very honest and open about our own failings and our lack of confidence, especially as your children get older. And we can point to God, who is the one who actually is the one we should trust, even if things are not right. Over time, as your kids get older, if I'm talking to the young families, when they're 18, 20, it becomes actually, instead of them being your children, it's the two of you and you're journeying towards God. So you're all like, hey, we're this family and we're all trusting God. We're all leaning to God. But when your kids are young, and you're discipling them and growing them, it's hard for them to see that if every day they're experiencing mom and dad destroy trust. I can't trust what you say, can't trust what you do, right? And so in the interim, that building of trust is actually important. And I understand it's hard. Like nobody gets it perfect. The reason why we're talking about it today is so that we can at least edify and encourage one another to continue on that journey. Yep.
One more question?
Okay, yep, go.
Okay. So if you say that, you brought up that, mom and dad is the one who build trust. In today's society, young families are so busy that parents, mom and dad, don't have time for each other. And if we can't build on each other, how then can we build trust in our families?
Very good, very good. So, which is why we have a 2-month-long generation series, right? That talks about all kinds of these relational issues. But it is so crucial. Like, mom and dad's trust for each other is actually such a pivotal anchor point for family trust. Yeah? Your kids will not believe you if they don't see you live it out between the husband and wife. So it's definitely something that you have to section off time to do. You'd be surprised. There are homes, I've seen some homes, in fact, maybe even to some extent your home, right? That there can be, I've always marveled that, your dad's away, right? That you kind of grow up kind of with very little time with each other, right? But it's possible to still have family warmth and closeness. It's still possible. So you don't want to mistake it and say, this is something that takes a lot of time, so I cannot date my wife. My wife and I can never have any time together because the children need all my time and effort to watch over them when they're doing their kumon, when they're doing their piano, so that I can create family warmth. Now, family, it's not, it's more an atmosphere than it is a full consumption of time. And so if it's an atmosphere and you model that with your husband and wife, that atmosphere gets caught with your kids. So I would encourage you, man and I, we have all through our 20 plus years of marriage, we've sectioned off weekly times to go away out on dates. And every night, and I talk to young adults actually, I don't know why they're so busy. Married young adults, they don't even spend an hour with each other a day alone at night. Instead, they will just do different things. But I'd encourage you, if you're a husband and wife, you've got a family, every day, spend time building family warmth between the two of you. That means you're open, you're honest, you're talking, you're building trust. Cool?
Yep, that's good.
All right, thank you. Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much for being here for the whole of this service. I'm going to invite out our MCs. They're going to tell you about some amazing things that are taking place outside. But before they do, I want to sort of do an invitation, if I could. Once the chaos begins and service is over, I want to encourage you, if you would like us to pray for your family, if you'd like us to pray for you, our pastoral staff, myself, will be out here. We'd love to actually connect with you and pray with you. Because this is not a problem that can be solved in one sermon. But God can burst into your home and transform it. Yep. We are not without help. We have a good Father who loves us, and in an instant, actually, the atmosphere can change. Sure, there will be a lot of work to be done, but the mood can shift, and prayer can break things. Cool? So I'm going to pass it back to Randy and Siani.
Thank you so much, Pastor Chris. That was excellent. And isn't he just amazing? He could play drum, he could just do sermon, and he could do anything. Thank you for your encouraging word, Pastor Chris. And he's not only just delivered the message well, but he just lead the life by example. I'm kind of like very, very proud to be part of the FGA because we not just do church, we actually live our life based on the teaching. So I'm kind of like, feel very, very blessed. And thank you for Pastor Roland and Auntie Evelyn that formed this church. And so blessed. And yeah, thank you. So as a practical challenge,